Mr. Vice President, your opponent in this election, President Trump, has made your mental state a campaign topic. Specifically, have you taken a cognitive
No,
test?
I haven't taken the test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying you, before you got in this program, you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not. What do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
Are you a junkie? He said to a black reporter. And that was fine because he's a Democrat and his son's a junkie who knocked up that stripper and then disavowed all knowledge. That's right, Joe Biden. Joe Biden thinks the 25th Amendment is a band. He loves their music. Not a bright man, not a bright man. Did you see Wolf Blitzer was on the television last night, and he was talking to a radical left-wing extremist Democrat member of Congress, Jamie Raskin. And there was, two boxes. They call them boxes. And the screen left was Wolf Blitzer, and screen right was Jamie Raskin. He's a pirate. And Wolf Blitzer started heaving, and his chest and his throat and his mouth, and he's pursing his lips. And it looked like he was on the brink of maybe just a huge belch, but perhaps projectile vomiting. It looked like maybe he was going to projectile vomit. And in the control room at CNN, they lost the Wolf Blitzer box and went full screen with Congressman left-wing radical Jamie Raskin. And as they're saying, it's kind of hard to hear, but there is one point where you hear this like kind of an urier coming once Wolf Blitzer is off screen. And then they abruptly cut away to a commercial. And when they came back, there was a different anchor. They had an anchor woman there saying Wolf Blitzer is off projectile vomiting somewhere because, that's the thing. CNN suddenly cuts to commercial break as Wolf Blitzer looks like he's about to vomit. Quote, wasn't feeling 100%, end quote. CNN swiftly cut to a commercial break after anchor Wolf Blitzer looked like he was about to vomit during an interview with House Oversight Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin, the Democrat from Maryland, on Thursday. Now, of course, they were there talking about the Supreme Court and not about the, Biden's bad news. But as Raskin talked about the dispute in Colorado over Donald Trump appearing on the ballot, Blitzer made a series of pained expressions, and he seemingly tried to stifle himself, from getting sick on air, projectile vomiting. Nearly a full minute after seemingly silent retching, CNN cut Blitzer's feed, leaving Raskin full screen to finish his remarks, at which point vomit-like sounds could be heard. Well, there's a lot of that going around, isn't there? There is. That's the thing. CNN abruptly played a commercial, cutting Raskin off mid-sentence in a snafu earlier reported by Mediaite. The New York Post reports. When the segment came back after a brief break, CNN's chief legal affairs correspondent, Paula Reed, appeared in Blitzer's place in front of the Situation Room backdrop. Wolf had to step away, she said. He'll be back, before continuing on with the show. Now, I got to, Wolf Blitzer has spent about 500,000 hours on the air over the years, so it doesn't come as a complete surprise. But there it is, kind of a wacky moment on CNN yesterday, noticed by, a few people because not that many people are watching. That's the thing. Let's get back to let's go to the corrupt news media and their fake coverage of this, because the most insidious power the media has is the power to ignore. And on the radical left-wing terrorists network, MSDNC, they had a fraud named Ari Melber. And, we played the Ari Melber. Did we play that? No, we didn't play that Ari Melber. Okay. Ari Melber on MSDNC.
If you want to get into the age thing, because let's call it what it is. This is ageism snuck into a report clearing the person of any wrongdoing. If you want to get into the ageism, young people are told all the time by their lawyers, hey, you're way better off leaning into I don't recall than possibly misstating something to a federal officer or under oath in this case.
See there how they're spinning it. They're spinning it. Oh, young people are told by their lawyers, just say, I don't recall. That happens a lot on Capitol Hill. So you think when the subject of his son Beau's death comes up, and they say, what year was that? And he's off by years. You think, you fraud, Melber, that his answer is going to be, I have no idea what year my son, it was 1972. It was, no, it wasn't. And they snuck it in, he says. No, that's not what's going on. But if you think you're getting your news from MSDNC, then that's what you get. You can go around telling people that at dinner tables and stuff, but boy, oh boy. Chris Hayes, who is the quasi-male version at MSDNC of Rachel Maddow, who doesn't show up to work very often. Chris Hayes, it's ageism. There's sexism and racism and ageism. And poor Joe, and besides, lawyers tell you to say you can't recall all the time, right?
The fact of his age is not something you can rebut. Mm-hmm. You can't tack to, if someone says you're too far left, you can tack to the center. The man is 80 years old.
He rides a bike.
He is the age he is.
He's 81 years old, I believe, isn't he? Not 80 years. He rides a bike. The last time, you shouldn't have brought that up, because the image of Joe Biden on a bike is not a good one. It's him falling over because he forgot he was on a bike and he didn't know you're supposed to put your foot down when you stop. And he fell over like, I don't say like a dead man, but he fell over like a dead man on a bike. He rides a bike, not well. He falls over. Oh, and CNN brought back Jeffrey Tubout. Remember Jeffrey Tubout? He's the one who was on a Zoom call with the company, pleasuring himself while everyone else was scratching their head saying, is that Jeffrey Tubout walking around pleasuring himself on our Zoom call? And he's back. No big deal. Now, Jeffrey Tubout did notice that President Biden said that he was speaking to President al-Sisi of Mexico, when Sisi, as every school child knows, is the president of Egypt, and that Egypt borders southern Israel and the Gaza Strip, and Mexico does not. And Jeffrey Tubout, I guess he wants to be fired again by CNN.
Mexico? Where did that come from? I mean, that's the only thing anyone's going to remember from this. He was exonerated here. And I think it's an easy call that he was exonerated. And I think legally, he's never had a problem with this, because the issue of criminal intent was quite clearly absent in the Biden case, and certainly according to the accusations in the Jack Smith indictment, is very much present in the Trump case. I think they are very different, and the report even spelled this out. But Mexico? I mean, politically, how do you explain that?
These people lie with such comfort and ease, don't they? He's a lying Sacagawea and, a public masturbator, but that's a separate issue. So our investigator, and it's, there's nothing here. There's no intent. The investigation uncovered evidence President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen, including classified documents about military and foreign policy, notebooks containing Mr. Biden's handwritten entries, and issues of national security, foreign policy, implicating sensitive intelligence, sources, and methods. But at CNN, they just sweep it under the rug for you because, they're filth and they lie for a living all the time. I tell the truth for a living and have fun doing it. Gloria Borger, remember her? She used to be somewhere in the news business. I guess everybody's forgotten about her because she's on CNN now. And she is, Beau, the sympathy stroke, Gloria Borger.
When I was interviewing him, he actually took Beau's rosary out of his pocket and showed it to me. This is not a man who is going to forget the day that his son died. I think what we saw tonight was anger about why they were asking him about it. What did that have to do with documents? And Joe Biden does have a temper. And I think what we saw tonight publicly is what I'm sure his aides have seen privately. And I bet he was the person who wanted to go out there and say that, because I think that was very, very meaningful to him when they accused him of not remembering when his son died.
They didn't accuse him of not remembering when his son died. They noted and put in the report that he couldn't tell within years. It's not like he missed it by that much. I'm holding my right index finger 1 inch over my right thumb. He didn't miss it by that much for years, by years. And Gloria Borgia, he's not going to forget. I interviewed him, she said, like she's met Jesus, because it's a religion to them, you know. And, you know, and he's, I wonder if when he's praying the rosary, when he's saying the rosary, whether he prays for more funding for Planned Parenthood, because, you know, that's Joe Biden's brand of Catholicism. And maybe, you know, transgender first graders getting married to donkeys or something. Does he pray for more after-school Satan clubs put on by the Democrat Party? It's their religion. It's a cult. They're fanatics. He's not going to forget. So now she's accusing the special counsel's investigation and the investigators of being liars, and the people that put together the report of being liars. Hey, Gloria, did he also really remember when he became vice president and when he stopped being vice president? Because that's in the report too. You can just make up your own version because you met him. You touched the hem of his garment. You're a very special person. Amazing. Now, there is a Democrat Congressman, Jim Himes, apparently his real name, Jim Himes on MSDNC. And the reason his memory was so bad is he did the interview with the special counsel the day after the Hamas attack on Israel. And Jim Himes says, without evidence, that Joe Biden had looked at photographs of the massacre from the massacre by the troglodytes from hell that Joe Biden is planning on sending billions of dollars to in what we laughingly call our border bill. And Jim Himes, corrupt Democrat congressman, says, well, you know, his brain didn't work because, you know, October 7th had happened the day before, so naturally he wouldn't remember when he was vice president or when his son died.
The president of the United States sat for a deposition. And by the way, nobody wants to sit for a deposition. I don't know about you, but if you asked me to, you know, identify precisely when I was where, what years, et cetera, I would have a, you know, under that sort of adversarial questioning, I would have a tough time, even if I hadn't just reviewed photographs of one of the worst crimes perpetrated against Israel in its history. And so, you know, I am a little puzzled why the special counsel chose to make statements that he had no business making.
I'm sorry. If you ask Congressman Jim Himes where he was when and what year it was, he'd have trouble remembering. Really? Would you have trouble remembering when you became a member of Congress? What year that was? Because Joe Biden couldn't remember when he became vice president of the United States. Couldn't remember when he stopped being vice president of the United States. And if somebody asked you about the death of your son, which Joe Biden talks about several times a week, I would say, well, I saw photos yesterday, and they're without evidence, that were disturbing. And therefore, I couldn't possibly remember when I was vice president or when my son Beau died, because how could I remember anything like that? Amazing. Just amazing. And I have more of the spin machine in full swing. And I've got Dr. Marty Makary from Johns Hopkins University, the esteemed medical professional, Dr. Marty Makary, coming up as well.
I have accomplished more than most men without the use of my brain.
Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com.
Some of you have commented, I wear since the day he died, every single day, the rosary he got from Our Lady of Every Memorial Day we hold a service remembering him.
It's Our Lady of someplace. He couldn't remember Our Lady of someplace. And every Memorial Day, they have a ceremony remembering him. Now, this probably goes to Joe Biden going around saying that he lost his son in Iraq, Beau Biden. He didn't. His son, Beau Biden, was an attorney, and he had been the Attorney General of the state of Delaware and was running for governor of Delaware. And he did serve as an attorney, serving in the Army in Iraq. And years later, I think it was 7 years later, he died at Walter Reed Army Medical Center of brain cancer. Now, Memorial Day is a day that we set aside to honor military personnel who died in uniform, serving the country. And it's kind of peculiar that it's almost like he pretends that he lost his son or his son died in combat in Iraq, which he's suggested many times in public, but that's not true. And as fine a man as Beau Biden may have been, Joseph Robinette Biden III, Joe Biden is Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., and the third, Beau Biden, very sadly died at the age of 46 of a brain tumor in Maryland after battling that for quite some time. And that's not really a Memorial Day, but he says, he likes to say that, the burn pits, he mentions burn pits in Iraq as though that explains his son's brain cancer, when in fact it does not. And that also has little to do with his willful retention of and disclosure of classified materials, including sources and methods, which was revealed in the Robert Hur report yesterday. Let's jump ahead to Marty Makary. Let's go to Dr. Marty Makary from the Johns Hopkins University Medical Center and school there, because he was asked about it this morning, and he's a rock-solid guy, Dr. Marty Makary. And he was asked, well, what about Joe Biden's brain? Is his brain any good? Dr. Marty Makary on Joe Biden's brain coming up next. We still have some more media lunacy as well. And a Democrat gave up his testicles. Now he wants them back.
Some things never change.
Hey, everybody, an old man's talking.
Grandpa's the name.
Ah, yes. Abe Simpson, old Abe Simpson. Yes, sir. How can that be true? Former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan launching a bid for the United States Senate. I guess at this point he just likes losing. Maybe, you raise money, you get to keep it or something. Anti-Trump pseudo-Republican expected to file for the open Senate seat today, according to the left-wing radicals at Politico. Just amazing stuff. All right, so we got a lot else going on, and the Democrat Joe Biden has lawyers, of course, and his lawyers are putting out statements about how mean the special counsel person is, and boy, how dare you ask all those questions. Of course, he's not going to remember tough questions like that, like when were you vice president of the United States? We do have a new T-shirt coming at the Chris Plant store. Braindead Joe has got to go. Braindead Joe has got to go. I see a gray T-shirt, got a little small, tasteful Chris Plant Show logo beneath it. Yes, sir. Now the lawyers for Joe Biden, of course, putting out, it's of course he's not going to remember all those things. How do you expect him to remember things like that? Can't just go around remembering things, crying out loud. Put out a statement saying special counsel's report is not accurate or appropriate. in its treatment of Joe Biden's memory. The report uses highly prejudicial language to describe a commonplace occurrence among witnesses, a lack of recall of years-old events. This is what his lawyers are saying. Really, like when he was vice president of the United States? How many years old is that? His son, Bo's passing, which was 2015. I can tell you when it was. And he was vice president from January 20th of 2009 until January 20th of 2017. I can tell you that. And I wasn't the vice president. But his lawyers, of course people forget. Sure, who's going to remember things like that? I am telling you. Grandpa Simpson. Yeah, Braindead Joe has got to go. Oh, yeah, that's inappropriate. That's right now. Didn't use dementia. Seemed a little, Just go with Braindead. Much friendlier. Iron Lung Joe. All right, let's go to Dr. Marty McCary because he was on the Fox News Channel early this morning, and I was watching for you. Saying, hey, Joe Biden, according to the report, and then he had the press conference, it was a disaster. And, he's 81 years old. People are going to forget things every now and then.
Everybody mixes words up and makes mistakes, but what we've noticed is a significant progression in slowed speech, and the memory lapses are increasing in frequency. So it's not subtle, and at this point it's not really a medical diagnosis as much as it is obvious to even a lawyer who essentially made the diagnosis in this report of age-related dementia. So that's the concern. You've got cognitive decline right in front of our eyes. It's very obvious how he's performing today versus, say, 5 years ago. And it's sad, really.
And it's sad, really. It's Dr. Marty McCary, a medical doctor, a professor, and a truth teller, which is becoming more and more rare as well. And it's true. You're 81 years old. You're 51 years old. You're going to forget things every now and then, and that's fine. Probably not when your son died or when you were vice president of the United States, even what year your son died, and missed it by not 1 year, but by many years. And they reported that. And now, the Democrats, well, you shouldn't be, and his lawyers, well, you should. Of course, people forget things. Yeah, not things like that. Okay. What year were you born? Should have asked him that. Peter Doocy should have asked him, what's my name, Mr. President? But he would have been the villain of the story if he had done that, of course. Honestly, this is a big deal, I wrote a note to myself yesterday before all this happened that Joe Biden's wave of illegal aliens is giving illegal aliens a bad name. I think that's true. The Venezuelan gangs on scooters in New York dragging women and all the looting and the madness and the mass murderer from Brazil. Only 11 people convicted of murdering in Brazil, never mind that. Yeah, but Joe Biden's wave of illegal aliens is giving illegal aliens a bad name. And I look at this, and I was looking at this last night, even yesterday afternoon, and there's no way out. There's no way out for him. There is no escape from where he is now. I've got to tell you, a couple of our brilliant callers today with great recommendations, just great stuff. The competency test and the cognitive test for Joe Biden. And if he passes it, then you got to charge him with the crimes. And if he fails miserably, then he's got to step down as president, right? And honestly, as Mike said from Queens, New York, talking about contract law, and, if you're not mentally competent, if you're a non-compos mentis, not up to the legal standard to sign a contract, then what is Joe Biden doing signing legislation and or executive orders? And should there be a review of the executive orders that he signed, opening our border and so on, more than 90 of those, his executive orders have been signed by someone who is non-compos mentis, who is not up to snuff, up to the standard for signing a contract, agreeing to a contract to buy a home or take out a loan. But he's the president of the United States, and he is cognitively challenged to be generous. And how do they dig out of this? On the one hand, you have to agree that he is mentally incapacitated in order to say, well, that's why he's not charged. He's not being charged with disseminating highly sensitive classified information about sources and methods. The reason he's not being charged is because he is non compos mentis, because he is not intellectually, mentally up to the standard that he would be held to in order to be tried. So which is it? And the Democrats always have it both. We always say you can't have it both ways. Democrats have it both ways all the time. And I'm not just talking about Bill Clinton either. And Jeffrey Epstein and all that, but, around the world. All that, but you, on the one hand, say that he can't remember when he was vice president or when his son died, even though he talks about it all the time. He says he got the rosary from his son or about his son from Saint something or other, but he can't remember when or can't remember the name of the church. And he's years off of when his son died. And so on the one hand, and the media cleans it up for you. This is why it's good to be a Democrat. And the most insidious power the media has is the power to ignore, and they're going to have to ignore a lot in this case. If you brought on serious people to have a serious discussion, a panel discussion or something, I want to say you can't have it both ways, but we know that they can. You on the one hand are not being charged because you're mentally incapacitated, and so you have to agree that he's mentally incapacitated in order to argue that he shouldn't be charged. But if you then, in the next sentence, say that, of course, he's up to the job being president of the United States, then you have to charge him with crimes, sources and methods, classified information, disseminating classified documents stored in his garage and over a steakhouse in Washington and elsewhere. In the meantime, they say a jury would view him as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. And if that is the standard we have now for President of the United States, then we're in bigger trouble than I thought. Amazing. Let's go back to Dr. Marty Makary because he wasn't done yet. What does Dr. Marty Makary see when he watches President Biden's behavior?
This is clear age-related dementia, and people are concerned about it affecting performance. If this were the CEO of a company, people would not buy the stock. A board would likely intervene, and people are concerned about the long-term trajectory of another 4 years.
And one of the problems here is that Kamala Harris is the vice president. And now she is front and center in this discussion. And the news media is already warming up their headlines for President Kamala Harris the Great. Like Nancy Pelosi became Speaker Emeritus. Right? And I, last year on 7/11, said that President Biden would not be the nominee next year. Dr. Marty Makary, who's not I've never noticed him be a particularly political person. He is a truth seeker and a truth teller. But he was telling the truth this morning.
Separate from politics entirely, it's just sad. We're looking at age-related dementia right in front of our eyes. Others may argue that you're voting for a party and not for an individual. I generally stay out of politics, but it's very obvious what's happening here. We're witnessing cognitive decline.
I was just told we went off the air for a little bit in Washington, D.C., and I'm sorry to hear that. Might have been when I was talking about my Braindead Joe has got to go T-shirt, too, at the Chris Plant store. Because it was. I'm being told, yeah, we were off the air for a little bit there. My apologies. I blame the NSA. So, yeah, we do have new T-shirt, Braindead Joe has got to go. That's good. And wonderful stuff. Marty McCary, I apologize for going off the air. Also, it should be noted, because there is other news going on in the world, although this is the biggest news in the world. And NBC fake news with their fake headlines. Biden won't be charged in classified docs case. Yay! That's their headline. Special counsel cites instances of poor memory. Poor memory. The evidence does not establish Mr. Biden's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The president could portray himself as an elderly man with a poor memory who would be sympathetic to the jury. But he did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended. He did not remember even within several years when his son, Beau, died. That's kind of a big deal, isn't it? Shouldn't that be considered to be a big deal? I think it should. Yesterday, the Nevada caucuses were held, the Republican Nevada caucuses. President Trump with 99.1% of the vote. And with less than 1% of the vote, Mr. Binkley. Binkley, that's right. It's amazing. Anybody voted for him, but he got 536 votes in the state of Nevada, which is kind of humorous, I think. Congratulations, Binkley. That's great. It's wonderful for you. And the NBC News poll from January last month, 76% of us believe that Joe Biden's age is a major concern or a moderate concern. 24% of people, all dim-witted Democrats, said that his age is a minor concern or no concern at all. Your Democrat Party. All right, Dr. Marty McCary, because he wasn't done yet, and I wasn't done with Dr. Marty McCary.
I will say this. If we are seeing this sort of obvious dementia in the brief flashes of time we're seeing in public, people are wondering, what is he like in private? And this report is the first glimpse of what it's like to sit down with the president for 5 continuous hours, just as the special counsel did. And as you said, he couldn't remember his vice presidential term, his son's death, even within several years. So it's not being off by a year or two. And that's the concern, is that this is what he's like in private.
And we've seen reporting that he curses everybody out and uses the F-bomb and calls people all kinds of nasty names in private. His own staff cursing him out and calling him all kinds of terrible things. Marty McCary is a kind and compassionate man.
Well, it's certainly humiliating to have somebody with a distinguished career in any industry, let alone government service, to be out on public sort of display in this state. It's not going to get better. And for that reason alone, I might suggest that somebody, pass it on to somebody else, because it's not a good way to go down after a long career.
Let's go to soundbite number 28. Last night on my Newsmax program, The Right Squad, at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we were talking about Joe Biden. It was even before the press conference, and I said this.
I honestly think that this document spells the demise of the Biden presidency. I don't think that he can stay on after all of this is made public.
And it was made public yesterday and last night, and Joe Biden held a disastrous press conference revealing even more about his intellectual frailty. And the Democrats are in a really tough spot. They're in a panic, and they know that their relief pitcher is Kamala Harris, and all they care about is power. Her poll numbers are even worse than his poll numbers. So what's a girl to do?
Look, I'm a Biden supporter. I slept like a baby last night. I woke up every 2 hours crying and went to bed.
At the Fox News channel, they sent anchorman Todd Pyro out onto the sidewalk to ask people on the streets of New York City if Joe Biden is too old to be president.
What do you think? Joe Biden too old to be president?
Oh, absolutely. He's feeble, and he's incapable of completing a sentence or a rational thought.
Its cognitive skills seems like it's not there, not 100%. So I'm a little afraid of that.
That worries you?
Yeah. For the state of the world, definitely.
I'm just not bothered by his age. I don't know.
He be forgetting things, saying things over and over. And as I read yesterday, he's talking about a person that already had passed away.
Does that inspire confidence in you?
No.
No. And that's the streets of New York City, of Manhattan. Oh.
Is Joe Biden too old?
Well, kind of, yes, he is.
He's not running our country at the end of the day. It's everybody else running our country that tells him he's a puppet, so that's just my personal opinion.
Is Joe Biden too old to be president?
My dad is his age, yes. So based on that, yes.
Mine too. Is Joe Biden too old?
Yes, he's up there.
What do you think? Is Joe Biden too old to be president?
Yes.
Yeah. Why? You heard the guy speak. He's kind of out there.
Joe Biden's presidency is over with. It's time that he stepped down. And, Queen Kamala Harris. Morning joke. Joe Scarborough. Terrible, awful, horrible person. Total fraud, charlatan.
Do you think that this guy is so naive? You think this guy is so stupid?
Yes.
Do you guys think this guy is so clueless that he didn't know by putting words in that Donald Trump would love for him to put in there, that wasn't going to be the headline for the New York Post, that wouldn't be on every... The guy knew. He's a Trumper who knew.
That's right. Attack Robert Hur, the special counsel, because that's what they do. Change the subject and attack, smear, slander. It's good to be a Democrat. Our media is the most corrupt institution in the United States of America. Joe Biden is not up to the job of being president. It was proved beyond a reasonable doubt, beyond any doubt yesterday, in the Robert Hur report and in Joe Biden's appearance on live national television. The rest of the world is howling with laughter at our enemies are, our allies are terrified because the United States, the lights are on. Joe Biden's not home.